Sir, let's start with you. By the way, this map came up on the screen. The red areas are where the US bases are located. The yellow areas are where the US Navy is stationed, which we have colored in 2 different dots. What does this map and these events tell us?
Of course, Iran, as you know, was talking about a Shiite crescent. There was talk of a Shiite axis. It had established a very serious network in Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. It had created proxy forces. Through these, the teacher, the one with expansionist ambitions, policies, and dreams near...
As a side note, I'd like to provide additional information. This is an assertion made by the critical faction in Iran. In the event of an attack from them, our response will be directed towards targeting and striking the United States bases.
Today there was a news report that brought to my attention their decision to withdraw from Yemen. This information weighs heavily upon my mind. There was a statement stating that Iran withdrew as we wish to avoid a confrontation with the US. However, the accuracy of this news is uncertain, yet we are witnessing this scenario. The US had opened this space to Iran after its invasion of Iraq. In that period, starting with Bush and Obama, after the overthrow of the Saddam regime in Iraq, Iraq quickly descended into chaos, and Iran, it was open to Iran's sphere of influence. Syria has done the same. It had a presence in Lebanon in the past, but it has increased it significantly. And Yemen, through all this, in fact, USA, but he wanted to design the Middle East through Iran. And Turkey's expanding influence in this geography was a major concern for the US at the time. Governments did not want. Iran, on the other hand, assumed all this power in itself. And it started to pursue a more assertive policy. In this geography, at the end of the day, it became clear last year that Iran could not afford such a policy. That arm wrestle with Israel.
By the way, forgive me, is it possible for you to take a few steps forward? There is the director's consultation in a way that there is a healthier
Iran
judgment
has been engaged in more of a struggle, but you know that Iran has never really put its weight on the field in this struggle. When Israel hit the Iranian consulate, when it martyred Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, Iran has carried out many provocations. In all of them, Iran has been he had to respond, because there is a very serious asymmetric balance of power. Therefore, after Israel's heavy blow to Hezbollah in Lebanon and the collapse of the Assad regime, we see Iran retreating step by step in the Middle East geography. What it actually did was to establish a line of defense beyond Iran's own territory. As we can see, this line has collapsed. Now, the Trump administration wants to increase the pressure on Iran, but I don't think Trump wants to go to war with Iran, because that would be completely contrary to Trump's general policy. What is Trump's general policy? Reducing wars, reducing military spending or wasteful spending, and helping the US economy and the competition in China, turning to suppress China. Therefore, of course, a direct and open war against Iran would be a direct response to the US intervention, and Iran would inevitably respond to it. We'll have to give. Iran will have to abandon its evasive answers.
Would Trump, who has even put his US citizenship up for sale with the gold card he has put forward, not take on such a war when the US economy is in such a bottleneck? Would he not take such a provision? Can it be done?
Yes, I mean, it can bear this burden, but why go under it?
The government would prefer
not. If he can achieve this through economic methods, through pressure on Iran, through sanctions, why would he do such a thing?
Is already ready with
Netanyahu wants this very much. We know that. But yeah, we cannot say that Trump does everything Israel says. The last time he imposed tariffs, he also imposed tariffs on Israel. Some statements from the White House were leaked. There are also accusatory statements against Israel. In other words, that Israel has not kept its promises in its trade with the US since the past, that there are serious problems, especially in the pharmaceutical industry, that Israel is abusing Israel. Therefore, there is a stick under the hunt against Israel here too. This also needs to be seen. Iran But if the United States carries out such an attack in the past, when Israel attacked it, it gave a token response. But now, if there is an attack directly aimed at regime change in Iran, of course Iran will have to respond. Then of course that war will take another dimension. I don't think Trump wants to do such a thing.
What about the nuclear negotiations?
Trump is trying to bring Iran to heel with economic sanctions and pressure. He can use Israel here. So, not for a regime change in Iran, but it will damage Iran. It will damage Iran's infrastructure. It could damage Iran's capacity to develop nuclear weapons, its refineries, its energy facilities. For example, it could approve an attack centered on Israel. When you look at it, it can support. It would be a more limited attack, and you already know that such an attack was carried out by Israel. And as we have already seen, Israel has been continuing such a chain of assassinations and attacks against Iran with sabotage and attacks since the past. Now, therefore, here I think that Trump is trying to make a statement about Iran that will lead to an all-out war. I don't think you'll authorize the attack, but the Iranian issue, the Iranian dossier within Trump, for him, the Iranian dossier is an important issue in the Middle East. By stopping its spread, by limiting, and on the nuclear issue, Trump wants to solve this problem for himself, either by striking a balance or with a deal. To do this, he wants to put maximum pressure on Iran as much as possible. Will be stepped up, but let's say we should not expect this to turn into an all-out war.
You say Trump would not prefer this. Would Iran prefer it? That is another question mark. We believe that Iran has always the audacity, the courage, the determination in all his statements, especially in the last 15 months. We saw he continued to make these statements against Israel, so it was looked at that the state ultimately had to put forward its deterrent power in some way.
But these were always in words and words.
I will bring the word there, dear teacher. On the other hand, Iran loves to give messages with such symbols and images. Recently, for example, while the friction with the United States was on the agenda, Iran released new images of the underground missile city. Once again, it seems that this friction will be limited to shared images or mutual statements. And I think you share that view. Similar?
Hezbollah also released similar footage. Hassan Nasrallah, missiles from the tunnels. Tel Aviv and even the southernmost part of Israel, it will be able to hit as far as the Gulf of Aqaba. Missiles and infrastructure. Hassan Nasrallah released videos about it, but what happened at the end of the day, we have seen all of this being liquidated. So today, Hezbollah's infrastructure, Lebanon has been destroyed by Israel. This is another mistake of Iran's own making. Iran took Hezbollah into Syria, overgrew it, and turned it into an obese organization. As a result, Israel infiltrated Hezbollah to its very core. It is not only Hezbollah, it has also infiltrated Iran. So we also see this. The answer to the question of how Ismail Haniyeh was assassinated in the guest house of the presidential palace still hasn't been delivered.
He's still protecting what he
Again,
wants
the previous
to know.
president of Iran died in a very strange helicopter crash.
This is also still in doubt.
I think that Israel probably had a hand in it from the very beginning.
You think it was an assassination? Well, I have very, very little time left, and my director warned me. I will immediately leave the floor to Zeynep Hoka without making it too long. Hoja, what is your opinion?
Yes, as you said, I won't take too much time, and I won't squeeze you either. One, the question you set up, or rather the question you asked, actually the answer is directly in the thing. America doesn't want it, but how much does Iran want it? Where does Iran really see the issue? Certainly, such an all-out war, a conventional war, cannot be between Iran and America, because the equation is not limited to Iran and America. Look, Iran is a state many kilometers away from America, but there is Russia right under its nose, with which it cooperates in many ways. I am talking about Russia as one of the major regional powers between Iran and America, taking Russia out of the equation. On the other hand, there is a situation like this, not only Russia but also Turkey, which, as you know, is a regional power or more precisely Turkey, which is step by step on its way to becoming a global power, but also a very effective power in the region. Neither despite Turkey nor Russia, America's involvement in such a war with Iran, or the possibility that America might suffer a defeat in the Iranian region after Afghanistan, is not something that America can ever consider. On the other hand, the same is true for Iran. Now, the statement made by Emir Ali Hajizadeh, was made by Amir Ali Hajizadeh, and the places he pointed out are clear. Iran is like Amir Ali Hajizadeh. Serious figures. Hajizadeh is one of the most prominent figures in this regard. He's the commander of the Air Force and space exploration. Is the state interventions related to the protests inside Iran, even in relation to the interventions that Iran has done to its people? He usually does the explaining. For example, he makes the speeches and so on and so forth. He is a powerful figure. Iran, especially in its foreign policy, when it makes certain statements, it is not a spokesperson and so on. He puts forward that strong figure that he thinks he can make that show of strength. As you have said, it is shaped by that figure. Foreign policy remains only on a discursive basis. And as you know, even the relationship with Israel, which we had last year, even the relationship with Israel in the sense of this conflict, has now led to analyses full of jokes, such as we have redefined concepts that are far, far outside the concepts defined in international law. Therefore, I don't think that Iran, or more precisely, I don't think that either Iran or the United States will take a conventional approach in this context in terms of armed conflict. This doesn't mean that it won't happen. Maybe in the long run, because in international relations, one thing is the cause of another. One thing leads to another. What happens in that process, at least in the long run, we can say that there is a long run, but then the standards change, the conditions change, etc., etc. But as I said, we can neither put Russia out of the equation in the case of an Iranian-American conflict, nor can we put Turkey out of the equation.
Zeynep Deniz Altunsoy, you made the point just as our time was running out. Thank you very much. Now, we started with domestic politics, and as always, we ended with the Middle East. We tried to put a broad lens on what is happening in the Middle East, as much as our time allows. Professor Dr. Enes Bayraklı, thank you very much. Good health on your feet. We hope to see you soon. Professor Dr. Zeynep Deniz Altunsoy, thank you very much for your contribution to the publication. Let's say we hope to see each other. Let's wish a good night to our esteemed guests and our esteemed guests watching us, to our viewers. Figen Koçak will be on your screen soon with other developments of the day. Goodbye until we meet again. Have a good night.